So as you're growing up and getting ready to head off to college, did a thought of having a career in food cross your mind, or it was just something we do at home?
I'll be honest, I feel like it crossed my mind, but I think too, like just in the time that was, I think like education and going like to college for a more like traditional
Mhm.
degree, there was a lot of emphasis on that at the time. And so I thought about it, but I kind of talked myself out of it because I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, like, do I really want to be a chef working in a restaurant? And like, that was kind of my view on like, if I go to cooking school, I had to end up like having my own restaurant and being a
Mhm.
chef. And I was like, is that really the lifestyle that I want? I love food, but I was unsure. And I
Right.
didn't truly see all of the opportunities that I think that now I see that food could
Absolutely.
have brought me. Yeah.
And we talked about that on our last podcast with Ali Manning, who's a food scientist,
Hmm.
right? And so today, these existed, but it was about exposure and access, right? So you could be a chef, but a food photographer, a food stylist, a food scientist, all of this stuff. But you got to be exposed to that, right? And know that that exists. So all we saw was food equals chef.
Yes, yes. And now it's like, especially looking back, I'm just like, there are so many places that food can take you. Like you said, food photography, there's the catering route if people don't want to do a restaurant, there's the private chef if that's what they
Right.
want to do more of. There is creating your own lines of seasoning or creating your own cookbook.
Right.
So it's tons of things that I wish I would have known then, but I mean, like we said earlier, life always brings you back around.
Absolutely. So you went off to study in New Orleans,
Hmm.
and you were doing, finished college. I believe you got your master's and
Yeah.
started working in your field. When did food start to become into focus outside of maybe this is something I want to do as a career, or I want to spend more time doing this and exploring it?
Mm. I think it's always been a focus for me, but more so from a view of a hobby, if that
Okay.
makes
So
sense.
you cooking those dinners in the college dorm rooms?
I was, and like some of my college friends till this day, they still joke because they're like, you were the dorm mom. Like, you were the person who we went to when we wanted food. And like, we had a kitchen, a shared kitchen in the dorm, but like every now and then you catch me down there, like making something home style, like just because I wanted like real food and stuff like that. And once I got like my first apartment in college too, like I would cook a lot for
It was
like my
over, huh?
friends and I. Yeah. So I think it's always been there, and like I've had a focus on it just because it's always been like a hobby of mine.
Mhm.
But I would say like I really started taking it like seriously to the point to where I'm like, hey, like I'd like to start creating essentially like revenue
Mhm.
like with this hobby.
Right.
I'd say probably the last 2 years that's really come into focus. And I worked in healthcare,
Mhm.
which I did project management and HR.
Mhm.
That's where my background is, but I worked in healthcare. So after the pandemic hit and after I went on a reality show, honestly, it felt like my entire life got blown up. And
Mhm.
it just kind of left me asking a lot of questions, like feeling just so drained from everyday corporate life and working in that environment for over 10 years. And like, I was like the definition of like grinder. Like it
Mhm.
was work, work, work all the time for me. And I think I just finally reached a point to where I was burnt out. And I'm like, I want to do things that bring me joy, like things that I'm actually interested in. And so I'm tapping now into more of like my creative space and what are those things that do bring me joy, that I can be able to show and share with the world.
Wonderful. So what is your cooking style?
Man.
A little insight into your
I'm
cooking
all
style.
over the place. I am all over the place. Literally all over the place. So I I'm a big like what am I feeling today type of person. And like I said, I like to experiment. So one day I may be eating Thai food. The
Yeah.
next day I'm like, I'm in the mood for Jamaican. Like tonight, I plan on making this like jerk pasta that I saw that's been on my mind. Um, Other days I'm right back to like I want true southern comfort food. Let me make me some shrimp and okra with rice or some
Yeah.
crawfish etouffee.
Mm.
So my style varies a lot. I mean, like I said, nearest and dearest to home is obviously just like southern food. I eat a lot of seafood, a lot of fish. But I like to experiment, and especially like as I've gotten to travel more the last like I don't know, maybe 6, 7 years of my life, like going to different places too, and like learning about new spices they use or like new ways that they cook things. Like that has always intrigued me. So I try to usually do something food related on all of my travels.
Okay.
And sometimes it's a cooking class, sometimes it's just like a food tour, but I'll try to take little nuggets from each of those experiences too and bring them into my kitchen.
Wonderful. So here is a scenario. You are going on Beat Bobby Flay. You got
Ooh.
one dish that you think is going to blow him out the water. What are you preparing?
Ooh. I would be torn between my shrimp curry
Okay.
and a pasta.
Okay.
A
Okay.
lot of people like my pastas. um like ever since I was like young cooking for my family, that was like I love pasta, but they would always be like, can you please make that pasta again? Like
Oh,
what's that recipe? And like I'm also I cook a lot by feeling too.
okay.
So like I'm not really truly a recipe person.
Okay.
Like I'm not the one to like measure things out. I'll glance at things and get like
Hmm.
a just for how it's cooked, but then after that I'm just like, okay, let me go in and do my thing, and I want to add this and I want to add that. um so yeah, a lot of the times I don't have like true recipes for stuff, but I think if I was going up against Bobby, I would have to do either my shrimp curry or I would have to do a pasta.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
And so, what are some of the spices that you must have in your cabinet at all times?
I mean, gotta have onion, gotta have garlic.
Okay.
um I would also say curry. I do use curry in quite a few things.
Okay.
I like it spicy, so cayenne
Okay.
pepper
Okay.
as well. And typically like some sort of Creole seasoning, just because I feel like when you're in a bind, like you could put that on just about anything, right? And make it taste decent, whether it's fish, chicken, in your red beans, whatever it may be. So I would say those would be like some of my go-to spices.